So I'm just going to dive in here. So for what we're currently discussing again is Celadon Bay. And excuse me, I have a cold, so my voice is a little bit yuckier. Oh, yes, it is on Amazon as well. Okay, awesome. That's super cool. I don't know how you pulled that off. That's awesome. But this is Celadon Bay, written by Pablo Pereira, also Celadon, also known as Celadon Bay Stories. And he did his own cover. It looks like super, super cool. Has more than one talent up his sleeves, or up his sleeve. He's from Uruguay, South America, which is just extra interesting. And the fact that this book is written in a second language just makes it all that much impressive to me. So that's just another thing. Pablo, according to his bio, wants to become a published author and was encouraged by his friend to share his work and maybe publish it. And I'm so glad that your friend said that because I had so much fun reading your book. So, his book, excuse me. Forgot I'm talking to more than one person. So, anyways, I'm going to go ahead and read the summary here. This is written by the author. 14-year-old John Foster is a loner, and that's just the way he likes it. If you lay low and keep quiet, there's not likely to be any drama or chaos to complicate your life. But when John's parents move the family from Sunset Central to the beach town of Celadon Bay, his once quiet and familiar world is suddenly anything but. To add insult to injury, the family must bunk in with John's Aunt Sugar and Uncle Owen, parents of his infamous cousin Martin, a boy with whom John, much to his chagrin, must share a room. Martin is everything John is not: extroverted, opinionated, fearless, and most notably, a terrible teenage womanizer. How is this ever going to work? Factor in a little rule breaking, an impromptu adventure or two, some miscommunication, and a whole lot of girls, and poor John is the proverbial fish out of water on the shores of this unfamiliar beach town. But things aren't always as they seem, and as John is about to discover, people can be full of surprises, even the ones you thought you had all figured out. And sometimes getting pushed way out of your comfort zone can prove to be life-changing. Celadon Bay is a tender coming-of-age story, one featuring an unlikely friendship, a lot of self-discovery, and the heartfelt and all-encompassing bloom of first love. Ultimately, it is a story that centers around that age-old expression, nice guys finish last. Wait, do they? So that's the summary of the book. The tags are beach, coming of age, couple, friendship, high school, humor, romance, slice of life, social issues, YA, young adult, young romance. So that's kind of what you start with when you look at this book is you have this kind of idea. When I first saw this, I was like, I think I had a pretty general idea of what it was going to be about. And the reason why I chose to review this one apart from the other books that had requested a review is it's rare content for Wattpad. And for those of you who are familiar with Wattpad, it is a lot of heavy romance, mature romance, fantasy stuff, lots of werewolves. I think they even have like werewolf month or werewolf week and lots of billionaires and lots of nannies. And it's just a lot of that kind of stuff, which is great and stuff. Like that stuff is awesome. And there's a reason why people read a lot of it. But I thought that this one was good because it's said a million times, it's a coming of age story. And those are fun to read. Those are interesting reads. They're usually nicely paced. They're kind of cozy. And they're not they don't have these wild plots. They focus on the characters. And my favorite books always have really, really good characters. And I love the innocence of young love as well. So that's why I chose this one, because it looked like it was something that I would enjoy reading. And I don't want to review a book that I'm not going to enjoy reading. It's a waste of time. So, or waste of my time, at least. So the character, I'm going to do a quick character breakdown before I get into the actual review. So the main character is John Foster, and he is 14 years old. So we are talking about young young man here. He is in 8th grade when you start out the book. He is, as discussed in the summary, he's an introvert, shy. He's a bit of a doormat because he's a bit of a doormat. He's a little bit pessimistic. He overthinks things, I think. He secludes himself to his room to like play on his computer because that's his comfort zone, and he does not leave his comfort zone. So that is our main character that you're dealing with. And I found him very relatable for somebody who's very different than the main character. Yeah, he's just like me for real. I found him super relatable. So as far as, I always like to think about like, is this character like instantly likable or engaging or relatable? Like how I'm going to be sitting in this person for a long time. I liked reading through him. I don't like poor me type of people. He's definitely not that. He's more just like, like, you know, like typical teenage boy, in a sense. I think that I don't think that there's a lot of teenage boys out there like him, to this extent. But I also found he's also very virtuous, which you get to later, where he has a strong moral compass and he will follow it kind of to extremes, which enter the kind of second main character, slightly the antagonist, but also, you know, well, he's probably my favorite character is Martin, his cousin. He is the opposite of John. So as mentioned in the summary, he has to move in with his cousin. His family has to move in with his cousins, his aunts and uncle, and live with his cousin. And John, the introvert, has to share a room with Martin. And Martin's also 14 years old, also in 8th grade. So they have a lot in common in that sense of both being young men at a very important time of their lives. And he is the opposite of John in so many ways. So he's a total extrovert. He's wildly girl crazy. He is a bit of he's a bossy dude. He's like, yeah, I'm like John too. Or I'm not like John. I am like Martin. I felt my personality. I mean, I was boy crazy. When I was 14, I was totally boy crazy. It was so much fun to like find a boyfriend, you know, like that was super fun. But extrovert, he's girl crazy. He's super bossy, highly optimistic. He like thinks life is a breeze. And I think because that's what it's kind of experienced, that they think he's experienced. I found him very exciting to read. Every time he was on the page, I was kind of happy. I love the way he talks. Yeah, I was like, yeah, picked up on that. Thank you, Hanky. Yeah, I do really liked Martin. And I get that the author had mentioned that he is a controversial character, that not everybody likes him. And I see why. He is a controversial character, but he brings the story to life. If there was no Martin, there would be no plot. So you need Martin in this story. But I digress. He has dimples, so he can basically get away with anything. He's just this handsome young man with dimples. He's perpetually late for things. He really does not take himself too seriously. He does not mind being the clown. I really liked Martin. He does stuff without thinking. He swears a lot, which his dialogue is so much fun. And he's really bad with names. And it's such an important detail to me to think that he's bad with names, because it just shows that you kind of question whether or not he cares about anybody but himself, because he doesn't bother to learn a lot of these girls' names, and he gets them wrong, and he doesn't care that he gets them wrong because he doesn't think they'll care because they like him so much. Like, he just doesn't care. So that's kind of who you're dealing with as the antagonist, second main character, best friend kind of guy. So anyways, the beginning of the book, John and Martin are thrust together. So these yin and yang, or yin and yang, I forget how yin and yang are thrust together, and it's the plot, basically, is what happens when an extrovert and an introvert get together. And I can tell you, fun things happen when an introvert and an extrovert get together. It's great, but it's the plot of the book, and it's amazing. So another character is Alex. Oh my gosh, Alex. Alex is Martin's older brother. So he's also the main character's cousin. He's like 19 or 20 years old. He's in college and he's like dresses like a 70s British punk. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen SLC Punk. But that's what I was picturing the whole time, was just like the insane mohawks, the, dark ratty clothes, a ton of safety pins, colored hair, like amazing. I love punk and I love Alex. Alex is extremely kind and wise beyond his years. He's a partier college student, peaceful, and he's a great bridge between like a brother and a parent. I really liked Alex, and I would read a book that was entirely about Alex. I really like his character. So that's the next character. Then I would say the next color, well, at least that I had written down, is Veronica Holtz. She's like this. She's the love interest for John, and that's not a spoiler. I don't think. I think it's pretty clear as soon as you meet her that she's like the love interest. She's really, really quiet, but I would not describe her as shy. She seems very sure of herself. She's highly intelligent and highly virtuous. Like she's very much, she reminds me a lot of John in the sense where I don't think she's necessarily, she might be introverted, but she's not shy. Like she's not afraid to talk to people. She will talk to you. She'll just do it quietly. And she's very straightforward, and I love her integrity. She's a great character. Beautiful, black hair, puts Snow White to shame, according to the author. So I love her. She's great. Also 14 years old. So we're talking about young people here. John's mom is strict, but not cruel. But she doesn't take time to properly parent. Same with the dad. He doesn't take the time to properly parent, but similar to, how we're talking about opposites attract type of thing. And where the dad is strict, he's really easygoing, and the dad is super hardworking. The mom and the dad aren't like huge in the plot. They definitely play their roles in the plot, but they're not like huge. They don't spend a lot of time on the page. And then there is Martin and Alex's mom, his John's aunt Sugar, who is warm and sweet, and they call her Sugar because she always calls the kids Sugar, and she just reminds me of like a southern sweet mom who wants all the kids to be there at her house. So, like she seems really sweet, and I love that character as well, Martin's mom. And it's funny because she's the mother to Martin, the crazy extrovert, and Alex, the British punk, who's incredibly emotionally intelligent. So I don't think that's a coincidence. So as far as characters go on this. As far as characters go in this book, you're already dealing with like a full deck of great characters. Yeah, Aunt Sugar is your favorite. I really liked her. She didn't spend a lot of time on the page, but just the idea of her, a good mom in a book is great. Like usually you have to cut out a good mom because they don't, or you kill them off, or like there's always some horrible thing that happens to them. So it was nice to see her around, and she just added this warmth and added this like kind of safe space. I feel like that John felt like he didn't have access to, but he did have access to it. But anyways, we can get to that later. But yeah, I love Aunt Sugar. But anyways, great characters. So I think that you have a great blend of characters. That's the whole part of this book, I feel like, are the characters, which is amazing. So, the plot breakdown is just exactly what was, what you see in the summary is that, the shy kid and his parents are forced to move in with a family in their family in a different city because his dad loses his job. John is forced to share a room with his cousin, who is the polar opposite of him. John tries to avoid Martin, the extroverted cousin, as much as possible. That's a small part of the plot. And, John wants to avoid getting into trouble with Martin because he thinks Martin's trouble. Although I think Martin's fine. I don't think that he doesn't like do drugs or drink really, or, he like do anything illegal. Like, I think he's a good kid. I mean, there's more to Martin, of course, but I think he's a good kid, but he's too much for John. And John, it freaks him out. And so he avoids him because he doesn't want to get in trouble, and also because he's not comfortable socializing as much as Martin. And Martin is very keen on hanging out with John and getting him out of his shell. So I shared this meme. I hope I saved it somewhere. I shared this meme with, yep, here it is. Hang on. In the Discord. I love this meme because I relate to it so hard. So this on the left side, it says how extroverts feel when they adopt an introvert. And it's like an angel saving you. And how introverts feel getting adopted. Congratulations, you're being rescued. Please do not resist. And it's so funny because I know, like, I feel like there's so many more introverts than there are extroverts. And as an extrovert, I totally have felt like the angel saving my introverted friends. And I just know that I was not viewed as the angel to save my introverted friends. I know I was the creepy robot who was forcing themselves on these unwilling people. But anyways, that's what I feel like is the beginning part of this is where it's like Martin's like, yeah, go away, demon. Yes. Oh my gosh. So there was this really quiet kid that sat behind me in like 2 different classes in high school, and I'd always turn around and chat with him. I'm obviously a very chatty, bubbly person. And he would never speak to me. He would never say a word. He was so quiet. And I would say like, hey, Chris, how's it going? Blah, 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 blah. Like just go off, and he'd just smile and nod and be like, and I would look at him and I was like, you're waiting for me to stop talking. Well, it's never going to happen. And I just go off. And I remember it took me a long time to think like, oh, maybe he doesn't think that I'm funny. Like maybe he doesn't think that this is charming. No, he was totally cool with it. It probably made him uncomfortable, but he still had a good time. So yeah, I'm just, maybe I'm being Martin and being optimistic extrovert who forced themselves on poor Chris, man. But he's fine. I check in on him all the time. Nice kid. Anyways, so that's kind of the main plot in the beginning is can we find Chris? Yeah, we can invite him. He's in a band. He's not terribly shy. He goes up on stage and stuff. So good for him. He's just, I don't remember hearing him talk. He was also a basketball star, which I was shocked. I didn't even know he played on the basketball team, but he was like the best person on our basketball team. So introverts come in all shapes and sizes. So they may not like talking to people, but they like doing other things. They don't mind being in front of people. So anyways, John, I love him because he's like, he just goes and hides in his parents' room before Martin wakes up every morning. And Martin tracks him down like a freaking bloodhound and is like, let's go hang out. Let's go meet some people. Let's go to the beach, blah, blah, blah. He's looking for a wingman basically. And you realize later that Martin is just really excited to have a friend, like somebody that he can hang out with. John thinks that they're just too different, that they can't be friends. Martin, that's not slowing Martin down. He's like, no, we can be friends. It's not a big deal if we don't have anything in common, you know? The two do end up becoming friends, vast friends. They have a good time together despite having nothing in common. And I say that with quotes, and I'm going to get to the nothing in common later. But they think that they have nothing in common. And they're, of course, as you would expect, Martin and John are very good for each other. They kind of, of course, John needs to be forced out of his room. Get some sunshine, John. Jeez Louise. Try different foods, talk to different people, just do something. And then Martin needs somebody to hold him back or just be the voice of reason in a lot of cases. So that is kind of the main conflict. I would say in the beginning of the book is that, or throughout the whole book is you have this, 2 different people, 2 different personalities and how they're going to, affect each other. So anyways, that's kind of the main thing. Martin is girl crazy and he has mad game. He can get whoever he wants and he proves it over and over again. But he really, so yeah, push and pull dynamic. Exactly. So they're both being affected by this new friendship. You find out later that both of them have not really had any friends apart from each other. So it's a new experience. It's a new experience for them. Martin has his own reasons for not having friends. He obviously doesn't mind talking to people, but he prefers just talking to girls and he burns through them. And I would say that's the main conflict, is that Martin is this guy that you love to read. He's exciting. He's funny. You want to see him. For me, at least, I wanted to see him on the page a lot more, but he does treat these girls like trash. Like he just like kind of likes, he's like it's like a conquistador type of thing where he loves to like get the girl to like him. And then he's like, it's like a power thing, you know? I mean, I feel like we all know somebody like this who really likes to get the girl and then do nothing, like, and then just break up with them because, hey, they got the girl. So there's that, as like a dog chasing a car. Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes, that's such a good way to put it. Yeah, it's like I feel like Martin does know what to do when he catches it, but the fun part for him is the chase. It's like the hunt. It's not being with the girl. Yeah, he has fun kissing them, but he's also, this is not a mature book, so it's relatively innocent. I don't think he's like, oh, okay, I'm just looking, for sex type stuff. So I don't think that that's what he's into. He's more into just like collecting these girls' hearts. That's just like the fun part for him. So, and it's sad and it makes you like, you're just like, he makes all these decisions and it's, that Martin proves time and time again that he is a good guy. And so, he can do better. And so in John, the main POV, there's like a couple of times where the POV switches to Martin, I think maybe like 2 chapters, I'm not sure, like broken up, and then another character, but you're mostly seeing everything through John's scope, and he's like, dude, Martin, this is not cool. Like, I don't respect this. I don't think it's funny. I think you're being mean. Like, John's really cool. Like, basically speaking for the audience, which is so nice that like there's somebody saying like, hey, you're being a jerk. Anyways, so that's the main conflict, and it pisses John off a lot, that he's like this. And I feel like this is the main conflict throughout the beginning and the middle of the book, is just Martin being a jerk to girls and like John trying to be like basically dealing with it, having to be the third wheel with all these girls who Martin doesn't even remember their name. John's better at remembering their name than he is. So that's kind of the main conflict there. Then enters the love interest, Veronica. And so I don't know if this is going to be a spoiler. I'm going to put up the spoiler. So if you are planning on reading this, just mute me for a second until this spoilers thing goes away. But an author, tell me if I should stop, by the way, if you don't want me to say anything about Veronica. But Martin plays matchmaker with John and the shy girl, Veronica. And it's really, really cool. And this is the cute first love that is referenced in the summary. And it's really, really sweet because, okay, thank you. I just kind of went without permission there. And because the chat's delayed, so sorry. Sorry, Pablo. But anyways, so it's really sweet because Martin hooks these two up because they would have never gotten together otherwise. Like, John would have never made a move. Veronica would have never overstepped her bounds to go for John. So they needed their extrovert. They needed this guy to make it happen. And so Martin is not completely self-centered because, of course, he saw that his cousin and best friend was into this girl. And he made it happen, which is really, really cool. I really like that he did that, of course. But the cool thing is that Martin is like heavily invested in Veronica and John's relationship. Like if they're ever having like a miscommunication, Martin's like, no, we need to fix this. It's like his parents are getting divorced or something, and he, takes charge and inserts himself into the relationship, and in a positive way. He definitely doesn't insert himself in any negative ways, at least not in the ways that he doesn't fix. So that is the love interest. And then there's a secondary conflict that I'm not going to talk about because I don't want to spoil it at the end of the book, and then that the main character has to deal with. And it ends the book at the height of that conflict. And the end of the book is so well written. It genuinely made my eyes water as I read it. And it's a very good ending. I was very excited to see that there's a sequel. So I'll definitely be reading that at some point. It's added to my queue. But there is a second conflict, which I don't want to get into the spoilers of that. I don't want to spoil everything. But I really like the way that it ended in that last chapter. So that's basically my plot breakdown. I'm going to go into my actual review, but first I have to go blow my nose really quick. So hang on just a second. I'm so sorry. I do have a really bad cold, so I'm so sick and tired. But anyways, so when I do reviews, I like to think I'm not going to do like any type of scale, best out of, or like measurement or grade or anything like that. I really just want to, for me, because I like so many different, thank you. Welcome back. Thank you. I really like to is it fun to read? Was it fun to read? Was it, or emotional or anything like that? So yeah, is it just like the vibe good? Did I enjoy reading it? It's not there's I don't want to grade it like honestly like out of 100 or ABCD or anything like that. So I'm just going to be talking about whether or not it was fun to read, if there were any strengths, any weaknesses, any missed opportunities, any like constructive feedback I could provide. So that's going to be like what I'll be doing for this review and probably all of them, because I just don't like the idea of providing a grade or anything like that. Now, as far as whether or not this book was fun to read, this was so much fun to read. This book was so freaking fun to read. That is like high praise coming from me. I love a book that is fun, and that's what I'm going for. I'm going for entertainment. I don't need my life to be changed. I don't need my mind to be, developed. I'm fine being at this level of intelligence that I'm at. I don't need to be emotionally destroyed. I don't like that. I want to have fun when I read. This was such a fun read. I had fun the entire time. The characters were amazing. Of course, I just went into that. The book is freaking hilarious. There were so many times where I was laughing. I was smiling like the whole time. Very, very fun. I think as far as strengths go, the characters are the biggest strength. The dialogue is amazing. There's so many fun, like, it's just insane that the author English isn't their first language. Like, that's insane to me. You know how hard it is to be funny in a second language? Like, anyways, loved this book. It was really funny. And it's like funny for a 14-year-old, and 14-year-olds are freaking funny. Come on. Like, it wasn't like, it was kind of mildly immature, but not like stupid immature, like fun immature. And every time Martin talked, it was funny. John had these amazing, like, the way that he talked was awesome. I loved it. It was well paced, so it wasn't like kind of all over the place as far as my interest. I was interested the entire time. It's a coming of age, so it's kind of for this book it was low stakes. So the author did a really good job of making me feel like everything is high stakes, the similar way that the teenage main character would think that it's high stakes, right? When you're a teenager, everything is the end of the world. You haven't experienced enough for you to realize like, oh, this is not a big deal, you know? So I think the author did a good job of being like, I'm heavily invested in what this main character is going through, even though if I was going through it today, I'd be like, whatever. But as an adult, it's totally different. So I think that the author did a good job on that. The dialogue, I love the dialogue. I love the quirky little, and not just the dialogue, but like the internal dialogue that John has. And again, I have quotes that I just love. And it's stupid because I had to share them all on my phone, so I couldn't, or I just did, hang on. I just had to like do screenshots of all of my favorite quotes on my phone. But they're just, and so I can't share them with everybody, but they're a very, very, very fun way of talking, very fun way of thinking of things. I loved it. Again, the fact that this is the author's first language is Spanish, and then they came up with this in English. Like I think that this book is translated into Spanish as like, I'm sure the original was in Spanish or something. So I can't even imagine how funny that one is. So, because this one was so funny, the character development in this book is huge strength of this book. And it's definitely like the main plot is character development. So it's good that that's done so well. I mean, it's done so, again, with the pacing, it's very subtly, these characters become better. You know, John comes more out of his shell, more confident, more sure of himself. And then Martin he has these, he experiences some issues, and the original first drafts were in Spanish. Yeah, that makes sense. Of course, obviously, not the whole world is in English, according to me, an American who believes that everybody's just an American, part A, part B, part C. But anyways, John makes a ton of progress toward being more himself, like becoming his own person instead of just kind of letting other people do whatever they want. He becomes more John. And Martin is frustrating throughout the entire story because he makes a lot of bad decisions. And again, you know that he can do better. But this is a strength to the plot. The fact that Martin is so frustrating. You want him to be frustrating. That's why you're reading it. You're reading it because you're like, oh, I love you, Martin, but you just, seriously, I'm going to strangle you. Can you not do this? I'm disappointed in you for doing this. And it's like, you're emotionally tying us to these characters when you do that. So huge strength of the plot is just the amazing character development that happened. Another thing that I absolutely loved was the intermittent breaking of the fourth wall. I thought that was cool. So the author or the narrator speaks directly to the audience, which I thought was very fun. Anyways, so was this book fun to read? Absolutely. It was so fun to read. Very well done in that sense, where it was just fun. Just fun. This is basically the biggest praise that I can give a book is, was it fun? Did it make me feel something? Yeah, it made me had a good time. I had a good time reading it. As far as weaknesses of this book, nothing really stands out as like a main weakness. There were minimal spelling and grammatical errors. The first half of the book seems a bit more polished than the second half as far as pacing and structure and just what's going on. It seems a little bit more planned out the first half than the second half. But as far as like straight up weaknesses, nothing is, it's not like, oh, this was glaringly obvious. You know, there were some missed opportunities, and I'll be going into those right now. So, and again, these are not things that were necessarily bad, but it's just something to make it even better. So your first two chapters are very good. But there are your first it's your opportunity to make a first impression. It's your opportunity to bond a reader, and especially on Wattpad, where, people will just be like, oh, because it's free, right? So you don't have to read it. It's not like you paid money for it. You're not really invested at all. You clicked on it and that's it. So you really want to hook your readers in the first two chapters. And one of the ways that you can do this is through emotional manipulation. I think that you should punch harder on the poverty of John's situation a little bit. You don't need the John's voice in the first chapter is, I wouldn't lose that. It's very, it's very like, I read it as deadpan, monotone, pessimistic, not necessarily Eeyore, like, oh, poor me, poor me. I didn't read it like that. I read it as hopeless. And I think that you should really, really, just kind of dive a little bit deeper into really how embarrassing this would be to have to move in with family because your family is poor. I have somebody really close to me who had to do this. Their parents got divorced, and they had to move they had to move in with their grandparents. And they were so embarrassed, and it affects them probably into adulthood. But at the time they were just so embarrassed, so ashamed. They felt it was stressful for them. Like, that's a big deal to have to leave because you're poor. Like, that's embarrassing. That's sad. And that is an opportunity to really bond your readers to that character. It's a fun book though, so you don't necessarily want to make it so sad, but definitely I would just hit that a little bit harder if it was me. Also, so there's the contrast. So as far as just my bullet points here, the next one is the contrast between Martin and Alex. They're totally different kids, right? Now when John I said the contrast between Martin and Alex. I meant the contrast between Martin and John. I wrote that wrong. The contrast between Martin and John is huge. They're totally different kids, and it's because it's like who they are. It's not just their interests. And so in the second chapter, when it is listed like, oh, we play different sports, we don't like the same food, like we couldn't think of anything in common. It's like listed in the second chapter, all of the differences. Those are not even close to like how different the main characters are. So I think that, and there's the part in like the second chapter where you say, or where the author says like, oh, we spent like 5 minutes trying to come up with something to talk about and we couldn't, because we have nothing in common. I feel like instead of just saying that, let the readers experience that with the characters, right? So if they're sitting there struggling to come up with something to talk about, I want to feel the awkwardness. I want to feel, yeah, exactly, Cherry. Show, don't tell. That's like such a huge thing. And this book does a really good job of showing and not telling, in my opinion. I think it does a great job, but this is an opportunity where it's like, oh, I would have loved to be like a fly on the wall. Yeah. I would have loved to be a fly on the wall in that room while they're sitting there, while Martin is probably like pulling teeth trying to get John to have a conversation with him. Meanwhile, so I don't know, like I would love to see that, because you can express their different personalities through that conversation, and you can show us that it's not really the fact that they play different sports. Like Martin can be like, oh, so you like soccer? Like, I'm on the soccer team. You want to talk about that or whatever? And then John can be like, no, I like karate. And then that's it. Like, that's all that John says. And so Martin's probably like, this freaking kid, like, can you please just further this conversation? And so I feel like that would be an opportunity to be like, oh, okay, so John doesn't like to talk. Martin's trying really hard to get this guy to talk to him. And I feel like that's how you can show like the huge difference between those two, the polarized, like they're just completely different characters. But because the bullet points that you have listed in your chapter are things that do not matter. I don't have a lot in common with a lot of people. I will always find something to talk about. We can talk about things that we don't agree on. Sometimes it seems like your differences are just too much, which always stinks, but when you're having a conversation, but it's not because you don't have the same hobbies, it's not because you don't know anything. I love talking to people like that I have nothing in common with, because I want to hear everything about what they like. It's like, oh, you're super into yodeling. Tell me everything about that. That's so when you have nothing in common, sometimes that's fun, but if your personalities are wildly different, that's not as fun. And that's what we're dealing with in this situation, where it's like one guy wants to talk. He's happy to talk about anything. And then the other guy's like, I don't want to talk. I don't have anything to say. And I don't like talking. Like, we could see that. We could see that in that second chapter. So anyways, so my next bullet point here, as far as missed opportunities, is with Veronica Holt when she's kind of introduced, the love interest. That is my favorite chapter, I think. You fall in love with Veronica through John because of the way he describes her. He's like, at this point, he's like, okay, I like her, get over it, in his internal monologue, type of thing. But I really, really loved that chapter. But I would like to see Veronica observed through John's eyes prior to that moment, prior to that chapter. I would love to see, he could be doing it passively. I mean, I kind of knew from the moment that she's introduced that she's going to come in later. But I think that it would be good to see, I want to know that John is kind of like watching her. I want to know, kind of just the things that he notices about her, which would be fun. We don't need to fall in love with him, but I would like to see her observed a little bit more, just to not be so like, oh, and all of a sudden I like this girl and we haven't talked about her at all yet. I want to even maybe see that Martin is noticing John watching her, because obviously Martin picked up on it. But it would add to the stress of that chapter, because spoiler alert, anybody who hasn't read the book, is when you're going into that chapter, you think, oh crap, Martin likes Veronica and he's going to do his terrible thing where he seduces for a 8th grader, where he starts dating this girl, and John's like, no, I like her. Of course, he doesn't say any of that. In fact, he gives him his blessing, which is one of my favorite parts of the book too. But I would have liked to have seen a little bit more on that, and that could have added to the stress of that chapter, which is fun for readers, right? To be stressed out, apparently, about the fact that we thought Martin was trying to steal John's girl. So I thought that was going to be the main conflict of the book. It was that John was going to be in love with Martin's girlfriend. In fact, he says something like, I'll be your cousin-in-law till death do you part, or something. It's adorable. Like, the way that the words are spoken is so cute. But anyways, that's just a missed opportunity. And then I have a couple of random notes. They're as far as not necessarily missed opportunities, but like things that maybe it should change a little bit. There is time gaps, like huge time gaps. This because the book spans off over like a few years, or 2 years, maybe 2 years-ish. I'm not sure. But the passing of the time isn't very fluid. It's not very obvious. So I would come up with a better way of doing this. There's like after the first Christmas, a few months, which Christmas is in summertime, which is just hilarious because obviously in the Northern Hemisphere, it's not summertime during Christmas. So that was fun to read too, as somebody from the Northern Hemisphere. But I would come up with a better way to do the big time gaps. I don't know how, but there's something a little bit more fun, because I was confused by how much time had gone by. Not necessarily confused, but more just like wondering about the time going by. It It seemed like I was missing something. In chapter 10, the faux plan, there is a flashback scene, and it needs to be a little bit more clearly written because it was a little bit confusing. I was pretty confused while I read that. And then in chapter 23, strong rivalry, there is the wrong number situation with Allison. And that one I was fully expecting to come back into the plot because otherwise I thought it was weird. And it didn't come back into the plot, and maybe it will come back into the plot in the sequel. But I was like, he kind of seemed a little bit flirty with this other girl, even though he was talking about his girlfriend the whole time. But he did John seemed a little bit flirty with this wrong number girl. And I remember thinking, I feel like John wouldn't do that. But anyways, that is basically all of my notes on the book. I had so many quotes picked out. So I'm just going to go over my favorite ones really quick, which I think I picked like 3. I had to limit myself because there were so many fun. And this one I think is from the 2nd chapter, and it is, I'm wondering if I actually share this one on the Discord that I really liked. But it is Martin is smiling at John, and this is what John says. This time I get a different grin, and this one looks like he bought it online and had it delivered straight from the fiery pits of hell. Hell probably froze over a minute ago, but it's been definitely rekindled now by that smile alone. And I love it. I love that chapter. Just the way that the characters are described. Oh my gosh, they're so great. I love that one. And this one, he just had, and John has this funny way of talking for a lot of things. Yes, that's so, yeah. It's so descriptive. And there's stuff like that throughout this entire book, Terry. Like, there's like these little tiny things where it's like, you don't just say, oh, he wore a mischievous smile. It's like, oh no, you get that. You get stuff like that in the book. And it's amazing. It is so much fun to read. Pablo, it's amazing. I love the way you talk. I love the way that John talks or thinks or whatever. And then there's another part where John's upset with Martin about something. And he says, I opened my mouth to release the Complete Insults Collection, mini pocket edition. And I just like, I love that. I love the way that that is said. I think it's totally, totally cute. I'm so glad you said that. Can you say it again, Missy? Pablo needs to hear it. What? I hate that there's a delay in this dang chat. I wish there was some way that I could remove that because I don't know what it is. But if it's something about the way that these are, the way that these talk, it's amazing. So, oh, that he's so funny in a wordy way. Yes, dude, Pablo. You are seriously so funny. The words that you use are so funny, and they're so much fun to read. Like this, like I love that about this book. There were so many things like that. Like the way that you describe things, instead of just describing them, you make it fun to read how to describe it. That is a talent. And anyways, I loved it. And this is I think this might be my last one that I chose. I think so. Let me double check. Yes. Well, this and the way that he describes how he loves Veronica is really cute. But so this is actually the one of the only times we get to read things through Martin's POV. Oh shoot! And I forgot one more comment that I have for the book. But this is from Martin's POV. And he is talking about John, and he's saying, I think John's upset at the time or something, but Martin says, having an actual working heart is definitely some kind of disease, and John is clearly terminal. Which I just think is like, it's so perfect the way that Martin describes having a heart, and the fact that he recognizes that his best friend and cousin has a heart, and he sees it as a negative thing. Obviously, Martin also has a heart. But I just thought that was hilarious. So I screenshotted it because I love it. And then I love the way that John plays or describes. Oh, I didn't say that. I love the way that John describes Veronica in the Veronica Holt chapter so much. She puts Snow White to shame. Like he lists all these little details. I fell in love with Veronica just like John did, because of the way you wrote it. So those were my favorite quotes. I loved that. Sorry, I wanted to also mention, as far as missed opportunities, is that the book ends with, like, the main character is, or one of the main characters is Martin, and he's the one who drives the plot the most. I mean, obviously the love interest is very important to the plot as well. And man, does Veronica just get the best ending. I loved that the way it ended. And it was sad. And I normally don't like sad endings. And I loved, it was so perfect. Oh, my heart. It was such a good ending. However, Martin didn't get his justice, man. He is the best friend. He needs his best friend. You know, it's really sad for Martin. And I feel like John was just so absorbed with Veronica, and the book was so absorbed with Veronica, that we didn't get to get anything out of Martin. So that was, I have no idea how that would happen, but I really needed something for Martin, some justice for him. It was a very hard time for him at the end. And he was losing a lot, I think, just as much as the main character. So anyways, that's my notes on Celadon Bay. I had so much fun reading it. Thank you so much for letting me review it and talking about it for almost an hour. It was so much fun to read. Really, really, really great. So, and if you have anything that you'd like to follow up with, Pablo, you know how to reach me. Because, yes, you're welcome, Hanky, for reading your favorite book. I've got two people who I've got you who read the book. What do you think? Like, what do you think about, your favorite parts of the book? If I didn't mention, like, your favorite character, or if I didn't mention, like, one of your favorite parts or one of your favorite lines, like, what do you like the most about it, Hanky? I thought one of the things I liked the least was very clearly how bad Martin was to Leslie. That was not fun, but that was, you didn't expect to love it so much when you started reading it. Yeah, I kind of, because there was already an established fan of the book, I was like, okay, this is probably going to be pretty good. So I think my expectations were, I think my expectations were pretty realistic as far as if I was going to like it or not, which is part of why I chose it. But yes, she paints cats on her nails, John. Excuse me, Martin. Painting cats on your nails is super cute, as displayed in the Discord. I provided examples. That's adorable. Go Leslie. Poor girl. Man, and good for her brothers, by the way. Not giving away any spoilers. And it takes talent. Yes, thank you, Leslie. We are girls that support girls here. And we like cats on nails. So, I mean, go crazy. That's adorable. But they're like little blobs that look like cats. You know, I would freak out. I would like girly scream if I saw that. She'd be like, look at my nails. And I'd be like, oh my gosh. So cute. I don't have the patience for that. I wish I did. So cute. So cute. I definitely thought that Leslie was, for having very little speaking time, she was very important to the plot. And her cats on her nails were also important to the plot and adorable. So, very cute book. Very excited for the sequel. I'm wondering, I saw some quotes on your board about the sequel, and I'm kind of wondering how similar the sequel is going to be to Celadon Bay. Celadon Scars, I think, is the sequel. Anything that annoys the reader works. That's true. It is. If you're getting a reaction out of me and you're not going overboard, man, I'm stuck on your book. If you piss me off, I'm going to read it until that character dies. Like, I'm going to be, yeah, if I'm upset, then yeah. Jeff needs to die. Sorry, different book, but I'm just saying. Okay. Thanks again, Pablo, for letting me read your amazing book. I really, really liked it. Nope, they're very different books. Yeah. Okay. Um, well, I'm going to check it out anyways. I got to follow up with John and his karate skills. Oh, there was another part. For some reason, I had accidentally thought that there was a part where I thought that John was crying and doing karate at the same time. And I thought, wow, if I saw that, if I saw a kid on the beach crying and doing karate, I would laugh so hard, and it would be hard. I feel like that'd be so funny to see some guy going, huh, huh. Like, I would have thought that was funny. And I realized that that's not how it was happening in the book. He did the karate moves and then he went for a run and then started crying. But there was a moment there that I thought that he was crying and doing karate. Very, not Dirty Dancing. Kevin Bacon. Footloose. Very Footloose, where he's like anger dancing. I thought that that's what was going on. But that's not what was going on. When I was in school, we'd always kind of like make fun of the karate kids, right? Like not in a mean way, but just like, yeah, you know, karate, like you're like kind of how they do like Dwight Schrute in The Office. Like you're not really gonna be able to beat anybody up if you know karate. However, there was this nice kid, and his dad was the karate instructor, and he was like some triple black belt, never got in a fight before until some guy picked on him at a party. I just picked a fight with him, not knowing he was like a triple black belt or something. That dude got owned by the black belt. Like, so karate is not useless, as a lot of people like to joke about, at least not in my experience, because that guy was much bigger than the karate kid, and the karate kid whooped him good. So, anyways, funny little things about the book. All right. Well, I will be reading Celadon Scars at some point. Oh, and I'm going to be going in and adding in probably my votes, of course, because I got to vote for the book because I loved it. And then also probably some comments. Yeah. Probably some comments on the book. And if anybody from Wattpad is watching this, if you would like me to review your book, please make sure that you reach out on my Wattpad. You can find the link somewhere on Twitch or whatever. Pretty easy to find. Misanthrope, but the O in misanthrope is a 0. And make sure that your book is completed, because I don't want to read part of a book. I want to give the full book a review, because sometimes if the ending ruins it, then I'm going to want to talk about that. Because I'm obviously very, very honest, and I don't want to read anything I don't think I'm going to like. But Pablo, loved your book. Sorry to keep you waiting for so long. I thought it was going to take me forever to read. It said that it was 7 hours to read. I highly doubt it took me that long to read your book. It felt like a very fast read. And part of the reason why I had picked this period to do this book, because I knew I would have 2 weeks to do it, because I was taking Thanksgiving off, because obviously I'm not going to be doing this when I'm with my family, out of town. And, I was like, 7 hours, I can take 2 weeks to do that. I read it in like 2 days, or maybe 2 or 3 days. I don't know. I burned through it because it was so good. So I don't know why it says seven hours to complete. Maybe it took 7 hours. It didn't feel like it. Good sign. It was great. Great book. Thank you so much. Okay. Now, are we ready? 91,000 words. Is it really? It did not seem very long. That's great. It was just a fast read. That's slightly longer than Elemental. Well, I burned through Elemental. I remember. Elemental, everybody, is one of the greatest, in my opinion, one of the greatest books on Wattpad. It is the first book that I read on Wattpad that I actually was like, oh, dang, there's like real authors on here. Like there's like actual free books. Sorry, I won't talk about it. I'll talk about it a different day. I love Elemental though. And everybody can see that it's on my recommended reading list. So, and now Celadon Bay will go on that list. And I only will put books on my recommended reading list if I actually recommend them. I'm not going to be like, if I like, I think about if I came across somebody who's like, oh, looking for this kind of book. And if I were to actually be like, oh, you know what you should read is this. Not because I like the author, because there's so many cool authors that I love on Wattpad. But books that I would actually recommend is definitely that one that shall not be named. But I would recommend Celadon Bay to somebody else. It's a good one. I think it's a good read. And it's especially if you're looking for something like cozy and cool. And anyways, now I'm going to move on because I could just keep talking about the same subject for obviously forever. And I don't want to give poor Pablo a heart attack and think like, oh, should I be paying attention to this? We are now going to be talking about Kiss by Ted Dekker.